Welcome in. You didn't find this by accident. This is the Whisper Lounge, a soft space for the conversations we weren't supposed to have. While you're here, you can leave a tip using the captivate.fm link in the show bio. And if you're ready, your complimentary 7-day exploration journal is waiting. Just head to whisperlounge.club/join to claim it and be one of the first to step inside to explore. Hi everyone. Well, the episode today is titled, Am I Bi or Just Curious? Well, that's the title right now. Who knows if maybe I change it. But the episode today is personal. It's as well as many of these episodes will be. We will get pretty personal. It's reflective. And honestly, it's something that's still unfolding in my life. The question at the heart of today is simple, but it's carried a lot of weight for me. Am I bi or just curious? And what does that even mean? And I think that it's a question that everyone can relate to, even if you are not asking that question around bisexuality. It can be around a lot of different things that come up for us in life as we grow and evolve. It isn't about rushing to slap a label on anything either. It's, for me, about slowing down enough to listen to real feelings, real experiences, and maybe even giving ourselves a little bit more permission to be complicated. Growing up, I definitely remember feeling drawn to my female friends, and not necessarily drawn, but like a desire to be drawn or desire to want, or desire for them to want me to be close to them. Was it friendship? Was it something more? Honestly, it's hard to untangle even now. I never got indications. I never had any homosexual or lesbian same-sex attraction experiences growing up. It was more with the people around me, I guess. It was more in my head, like I would imagine it. And as I've said before, just in case anyone hasn't listened to previous episodes, I grew up in a very Christian environment, Christian school, church, so everyone around me, that was the starting off point that we were all coming from, right? And so it was definitely more in my head and my imagination. But I had that desire. And I just knew I wanted to be close, really close. Emotionally, physically, I craved that intimacy. And I often felt like I didn't quite find it. Things felt, with my girlfriends, often felt awkward, dramatic, not as emotionally safe as I hoped. As a matter of fact, I don't have any real ties to childhood girlfriends. I wasn't able to keep those intact, if that makes sense. And with guys, growing up, it weirdly felt much easier. I hung out with my guy friends all the time. It just felt less complicated. It was less loaded. And, I also remember being curious in my head, like I said, about kissing girls, about what that would feel like. I even asked my mom once, and I have this memory growing up of asking her and her responding in the way of something, not exact words, but something like, well, that's normal to be curious, normal to imagine what it would be like, but being gay isn't part of someone or who they are. It's a lifestyle choice. Like, you choose it or not, just like you choose to have sex or not. And to her, curiosity was fine as long as it wasn't pursued. And so I didn't pursue it. Homosexuality was a sin, and so therefore, it was completely off the table. Which for me, which I'll talk about a little bit more, wasn't a big deal because I was attracted to men, right? So giving up my attraction to women didn't feel like completely sacrificing all hope for romance and sexual attraction as I grew up. I just focused it on my attraction to men. Fast forward, not only a few years, but fast forward a marriage, children, a divorce, and a drastic theological and life paradigm shift. And I was dating someone casually. Well, casually but seriously, if that makes sense. We had an open relationship, but it lasted for quite a while, for a couple years. And, I mentioned this ccuriosity to him, kind of in a joking way. And he joked back because it's, very trendy. He was like, "Oh, so you're, quote, bi-curious?" That's the trendy term. And all women, all divorcees are bi-curious. So that's just how we had that conversation. And, he never really brought it up again. But at one point we were at an event together, and it felt like a blink of an eye. He had all of a sudden facilitated a threesome. Totally was not expecting it, without me really understanding how much was even being orchestrated by him. That by itself is a conversation for another day. Conversation about consent, pacing, and how women's explorations often get filtered through male desire first. But with all that set aside, he facilitated this threesome. And what stands out to me in this episode to talk about the most isn't the event itself, although I think I will have an episode about my first threesome. Today I want to focus more on what happened after. I really connected with this woman. I connected with her, and not just sexually, but emotionally. I felt really safe with her. I laughed with her. I wanted her. I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to continue the connection. And I think part of what made this feel a little bit safer for me was that we were all long distance. So I didn't feel like I was sharing my space or community with either of these people. I was so connected to her that, we continued our relationship, and she kind of created kind of a triad with the man that I was with. And, but she and I we facilitated, like for instance, facilitated a weekend together because that was the attraction that was there. And it was the first time that I let myself actually experience that side of me without shoving it into a box of, sin, but also of something that was just for fun or just a phase. And honestly, I still think about her. I think about her often. But even after that, I didn't, and still haven't, quote, come out. Part of me felt like, well, why bother? I'm happy with men. So, that's much simpler. That's much safer. Another part of me, I think the deeper part, knew that it wasn't just about who I could be happy with. The deeper part knows that it's about who I can be fully seen by. I joked with a friend once, kind of in that same time period that the threesome and this other woman happened. I was with a friend of mine who is a lesbian. She's not bisexual, and we were hanging out, and we traveled a lot to do different events. And I told her, I can't remember, we were talking about just attraction, and I was telling her about I've been exploring this little bit of attraction, and I said something, I don't remember why, but I said, well, I don't travel for fun, I travel to be gay. She thought that was hilarious. She laughed, but it was true. When I left town, I left my social circles, left my family's expectations. I could let that part of me breathe a little bit more. I could be freer without a fear of getting caught, as it were. And I think that's funny too. It's fascinating to me that I think we all have this same shared experience where we may be doing something that we don't even think is wrong, and yet we have a sense that we don't want to get caught. And I definitely had and have that sense, which, like I said, for me, it's something to just continue to explore. It's interesting to me. And for me, that getting caught, right, brought up another question. I had this voice in my head that was saying, well, are you just attracted to this because it's forbidden? Because it's kinky, I mentioned in a previous episode, kink is when you're aroused by something that is forbidden to you. or was forbidden at some point to you. And that's what makes it arousing. And so I've sat with that for a while. But when I really listened, really tuned into my body and my emotions, I knew it wasn't just the taboo. It wasn't just the kink. I could bring the taboo and the kink into the room, into the space, right, to make it more fun. But it was real. I wasn't just attracted to women's bodies. I'm drawn to their energy, their softness, their presence. I've had experiences where, I'm with a woman and I want to hold hands. I want emotional intimacy. I wanted physical closeness that wasn't always about sex, but also sometimes very much about sex. And with that said, I think something else that comes up for me is this idea that I remember growing up in the Christian community, where it's this idea of homosexuals or anyone in the queer community, or transvestites, transgender, all of these terms, right? And it was like, well, they're sexual predators. Because I know that I've had that question asked of me, and I even asked of myself, or I know people are thinking it. Like, okay, well, if you're attracted to women, then what's it like with your girlfriends who are straight? Or you just want to have sex with all of them? Or are you just constantly checking them out and objectifying them? It's like, no, I'm not a sexual predator, number one. But I'm also just like every other human being, not thinking about sex all the time and not doing things that are against the values or boundaries of the other people in my life. With my straight girlfriends, I'm not thinking about having sex with them. They're straight, right? It's more of a sense of when I can feel that attraction being reflected back to me, kind of like almost like a gaydar, I guess. But it's not gaydar, because even straight people have this, right? Where you can feel the attraction being reflected back. That's when I kind of get more curious about the attraction. I think it's the same thing for straight couples or straight people, where you have your life partner and you love him and you're committed to him and you're in a monogamous relationship and you're still attracted to another man potentially. That's just normal. That happens. And so, but I think one thing that's hard about being bi is, especially if you can pass most of the time as being straight, is that feeling of being misunderstood. Bisexuality is, it's in the middle. Straight people think you're going through a phase. Gay people think you're not really one of them. Even internally, you can doubt yourself. If I'm happy with a man, am I still bisexual, or am I straight now? Am I still bisexual? The answer I found is yes. It doesn't vanish when I'm in a relationship with someone of the opposite sex. That attraction is fluid. And for me, it's created this capacity for connection that's bigger than one box. It's crazy to me to think that truly I can be attracted to both genders that exist on this planet. And it's also crazy of me to think, wow, what if I was limited to only one? What would that be like? I read a book on vacation, and the book that is very well known. It's The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and it was written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's a novel, and it just gave me a lot to think about around the themes of bisexuality. And I don't want to spoiler alert, it's a fantastic book. Highly recommend you read it. But the themes of sexuality really come out in that book. And it's about a woman who lived most of her life very publicly as straight, but privately had other inclinations. And the character struggled because she didn't feel fully accepted in either world. If she were in a relationship with a man, the woman was jealous. If she were in a relationship with a woman, the man was jealous. The man was jealous about her potentially being attracted to a woman. Both her relationships with men, both her relationships with men and her relationships with women were very real. And that just resonated so much with me, because bisexuality often feels invisible, like you're too much for one world, but you're not quite enough for another. Or like you have to pick a side to be understood. But, real life doesn't always fit that neatly. That's why I said I think the question of this episode is more than just about bisexuality, right? We all have, I think, areas of our life where it feels like maybe we're being asked to pick a side. And it's more complicated than that. I mean, how about politics? Anyone? Got two parties to choose from. How about maybe it's more complicated than that, right? One of the other things that, though, has made this exploration and curiosity for me so healing and wonderful is one of the big gifts I have in my life, which is my current relationship. And that's a relationship where my partner really sees and honors this part of me. He doesn't just tolerate it. He embraces it. He doesn't see it as a threat. It's just part of who I am. And I'm so grateful that I don't have to fracture myself to be loved. I can be whole. And, that's a kind of freedom that feels rare and very, very sacred. But it's one that I encourage the people in my life, the friends that I have the opportunity to share these conversations with, to look for. Like, look for those places where you don't have to turn off a part of you. Look for those relationships where you don't have to be incomplete or feel incomplete. And when you find that relationship or that kind of relationship, just nurture it. It's such a treasure. And it's one for me that's really opened my eyes to things that I didn't know were possible in relationships, in this idea of being loved, something I didn't think was possible around the idea of attraction, and what it looks like for me to call myself bisexual and be okay with that. Not even saying it out loud, just saying it to myself, right? And feeling like I can own that as an identity, and that I can own that as part of my identity that I'm proud of. There's no getting caught. There's no shame associated with it, or confusion. How can you be bisexual? Because you're just attracted to everyone. It's a very cool place to be, and my relationship is definitely part of what's created the foundation for that exploration. And so, the question we started with, am I bi? Am I just curious? Honestly, maybe those aren't even the right questions. The better question is, am I honestly listening to what's real inside of me? And for me, I think the answer is more and more yes. I'm attracted to women, emotionally, physically, intimately. I'm attracted to men too. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I'm so grateful that it's not. And if you're somewhere in between, if you're still figuring it out, that's also obviously okay. Curiosity about something is not confusion. It's the beginning of discovering what truth might be for you, or what self-awareness looks like for you, what honesty looks like. And that beginning is so important, because if you're able to, it's not about this again, trendy cliche search for truth. It's not about that. It's about the fact that I can have this sacred, beautiful relationship with someone else in my life because I'm able to be honest with myself. If I can be honest with myself and figure out what truth is for me, and be willing to go on that discovery, then I can do that with I can communicate that to my partner, and I can have a better relationship with the people around me, with friends and my partner and partners, if that's what you choose. So it's about how all of this truth and discovery enriches who you are so that you can enrich the people around you, but also so that you can have those really sacred relationships. So for me, this journey is still going on. It's about so much for me, and so much more than even I could have encapsulated in this episode. It'll come out, I'm sure, in other topics that we have and talk about. But I really hope that it's encouraged someone listening to be adventurous and to be curious, not to be afraid of that curiosity. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for being here. Tip the lounge or grab your free journal while it lasts at whisperlounge.club.